Hello, hello. Henry, you got me?
All good.
What's going on, everyone? Today's January 17th, 2024. It is Wednesday, your midweek review. A couple things to touch before we go ahead and get into the markets. With regards to news, tomorrow you have 8:30 a.m. unemployment claims. You also have a building permit and a Philly Fed manufacturing index releasing at that same time too. So you got some pre-market volatility there. And obviously throughout the entire week, we've had these World Economic Forum meetings that have been taking place that have just been tentative day to day throughout the entire week. So still expect some volatility there on Thursday. On Friday, you also have your 10 a.m. prelim consumer sentiment on top of existing home sales and inflation expectations. So that'll be some post equity open news on Friday. And we also still have our World Economic Forum release there as well. So still plenty of volatility for the rest of the week. It hasn't been a super volatile week, but still seeing some movement in the market. So hopefully if you are trading safe and keeping an eye on when these things are releasing. Other than that, I don't really have any news or announcements from my side of things. Obviously, going to have our Sunday call, same time, 10 a.m. Henry, you got anything?
No other announcements.
All righty, just kind of going through the motions. I like it. All righty, dollar. I will go ahead and share that. Looking at a monthly on dollar, really just still pushing up off of this CIBI. We have now reached this tiny little volume imbalance, so I'm curious to see how we play there with regards to if we want to use it as kind of a sensitive area to kind of pillow off of it and go lower, or if we want to kind of rip through it to go into this CIBI. Still kind of on a monthly standpoint, still very neutral there. When you go down into a weekly, though, you can see that we did take our weekly target that we were looking at, which would be this buy-side liquidity high, right? The first week of the year's high. We went ahead and purged that this week, which is nice. I'm curious to see, though, my eyes go to this CIBI to see how we close this week, right? So we've got 2 days and 2 hours before this closes. If we close above it, I'd be curious to see if we use it as inversion. If we close back inside of it, I'd be curious to see if we actually continue going lower and fill this BISI down here, right? So you still have this BISI in here. So that would be something that I would be looking for if we close above it to see higher pricing, to potentially see buy side. If we close back inside of it, we have the opportunity to come back and at least fill down into here and then make a decision following that. Going down into a daily, you can see that we have now fully filled the CIBI that we've been talking about. We've been able to see this entire run higher. You can see and note on our Sunday call, we talked about how we were actually curious to see if this low hold, and it did. And we kind of just opened this week and really kind of ran higher into that. We do have a liquidity void here, right? There's no wicks. There's been no trading taking place between Monday and Tuesday's open and close. So over here, there's a liquidity void, and then the line's in and around the same area as this volume imbalance, right? We were talking about how volume imbalances, the key to watching those is candle closure. And we now have buy side offered through that, but we still would like to see sell side candles offered through that also with the form of down closure. So I'm curious to see, although we have now fully filled this and a buy side liquidity target has been taken, I would like to see what we do with regards to throwing ourselves back inside this range, right? We do have still unbalanced price down in these levels. And so I'm curious to see, one, how the consequent encroachment plays, but if we do play back in this range, how does that look, right? We did not necessarily close, and it does not look like we're going to close above this CIBI on the daily. So we're still respecting this, right? We had a little mohawk today, but with regards to closure, we still very well are closing inside this CIBI. And so we could potentially see a run lower for the rest of the week to fill this range. If we do want to stay heavy-handed to the upside, I would like us to actually respect and leave some of this unfilled and respect the consequent encroachment in this high and actually continue higher. But with regards to the rest of the week, I like to see us retrace back into this range and then see where we close the rest of the week. So if we do go higher, look to see if the consequent encroachment of this whole daily CIBI stays sensitive and we go higher from there. So you would potentially see something like this, right? If we're going to run higher, and if we aren't going to run higher, just expect price to retrace back inside of this area in here, back into this volume imbalance, back into this liquidity void. And then from there, that will establish obviously a dealing range, right? When we're looking at this, and we can see where the equilibrium is, right? You've got this range and you've even got this range, and we want to see what price does. If it does deliver into a discount, how does that discount look? How does it react with regards to candle closure? So obviously our sell side or our buy side targets have been hit on dollar. So I'm curious to see, and if you're going to put a gun to my head, I'd like to see us just go back into the range this week and retrace lower, and then figure it out from there. See where we close, see how we close with regards to the consequent encroachment, and even going back on a weekly, how that looks in here. If we do decide to close back below here, do we want to go maybe lower in here? The only reason why I'm potentially leaning towards lower prices right now after this has been taken is just the way indices look. But if for whatever reason we do start to go higher on DXY and we start to go higher on indices, that's just going to hint that we are currently in a mixed market condition, and that is totally acceptable. That happens all the time. And so don't think that, you know, just because this was going to potentially go higher, ES and NQ have to go lower, right? Still give them some time. We're still very early in the year. Let them figure themselves out. Try to figure out whether or not we are in a mixed market or not. And other than that, that's really about it for me on dollar.
Okay. Do a quick review of indices. Not too much different on a higher time frame basis, but I'll actually start with monthly chart. So really here on the monthly chart, just being aware of the fact that we do have a monthly BISI below us. Okay. Drop it down into a weekly. This is what we've been playing off the past couple weeks now, the weekly BISI right here between this candle's high and this candle's low. What we've been talking about on the Sunday calls is as long as price remains in or above this weekly BISI, the expectation is that buy side will trade above these highs up here. If you drop down to a daily and 4 hour, you can start to see there's a lot of relative equal highs developing above here, which means there's going to be buy stops resting above those for anyone who's selling short. And so the market can move to that area so that anyone who's long in here can distribute their positions to a willing buyer up here. They can sell to a buyer. Dropping down to a daily, we started to get a little bit of interesting action for the week today. A bit of a deeper retracement than I had been anticipating. I would have liked to see this early run just straight up to buy side, but we are coming off to fill the remaining inefficiency that is down here. So you can see today's action came down into this daily BISI and then right to the consequent encroachment of this wick, the first candle creating this fair value gap right there. So if I draw that out, you can see right there on the consequent encroachment how it just whipped a tiny bit past it and then came off very nicely. One thing to note is that while we did trade to and through the daily BISI, the candle closure was above and outside of it. So nice respect for that overall. And this doesn't immediately point to sell side trading because of the closure. I still would like to see buy side trade as long as the weekly BISI is trading in or above. There is the opportunity for price to continue past today's low and work back into the weekly BISI. That's totally fine if that happens. Like I said, as long as price is trading inside of here or above it, the expectation is still for buy side to trade. The only reason I would shift my outlook is if we break under this low and create a new daily SIBI in the process, because then we're seeing displacement below this low, and we could potentially work back into the highest time frame BISI down here being the monthly BISI. That is all on ES. I'll touch on NASDAQ really quick. Same idea on NASDAQ really. Came back on the monthly chart for the immediate rebalance. Makes sense to continue working up toward the buy side above here. We do have that monthly BISI below as well, so just be aware of that. On the weekly chart, same idea here with NASDAQ. As long as price remains inside or above the weekly BISI, the expectation is that buy side will trade above the high from Tuesday, the 26th weekly candle. Dropping down to a daily chart, you can see a really nice responsiveness at the point of equilibrium within the stealing range. If you take your fib and put it on the low right here, up to the high, you can see today's candle came down, failed to reach into that daily BISI down there, which ES did reach into. So NASDAQ has been a bit more bullish than ES has here. Dropping down just to equilibrium and then closing back up inside these wicks right here. So my expectation with NASDAQ is to continue that strength that we're seeing. I'd like to see it continue to work up toward buy side without really having to dig deep down into here. But if it does dig deeper down into the daily BISI right here, like I said, as long as we still remain inside the larger weekly BISI, inside or above it, the expectation is buy side up here. The only reason I would change is the same for ES. So if we start getting closure below this BISI and then break through the lows here with a daily displacement, then my expectation would be for price to trade toward the monthly BISI below. Otherwise, just looking for highs up here. If you drop down into a 4-hour chart, you can see how today's action traded nicely off this 4-hour SIBI and the order blocks together to work down into a prior daily low and back into the weekly BISI here. Tap that equilibrium point of the dealing range really nicely, and then coming back off of there. So if you see closure back above this 4-hour SIBI, then that's a good sign. We'll continue to work up toward the relative equal highs up here. That is all for me. Any last thoughts here, Carson?
No, I'm good. You know, just you guys want to make sure that, you know, we're still very early in the year, and you have to keep that in mind. The markets are going to move, but they're also going to be fickle. You know, still just give it time, give it time. You know, we still haven't had a single monthly candle close yet on the year. So with regards to trying to figure out where these higher time frames are going to go, which we will, it's just going to take some time. It'll take a couple of weeks to really get a gauge on where we want to see the dollar go and how ES is trading to that or MQ to that. So, you know, just the more data, the better, right? Don't try to fit a square peg in a round hole and let time do its thing. And, you know, we've seen a little bit of an increase in activity on the training exercises. So kudos to the ones that have been doing it. If you haven't yet, please submit it. Those will be good. That'll give us, you know, good things to go over on the week ends. Other than that, nope, just kind of gearing up for February. It'll be a big month, kind of getting back in it from a live standpoint. I'm not really trading any markets live until February, so I'm just kind of getting my ground on paper after the long break in winter, and still just kind of getting my groove on it. Other than that, all's well.
All right, good stuff. Well, that'll wrap up our midweek review then. Stay safe, be responsible the rest of the week, and we will see you all for our regular call, Sunday, 10 a.m. Eastern.
Peace.
Take care, y'all.